Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again here with, I'm pretty sure this is part 3 of my reaction to Mel Downs, former 22SAS Sergeant Major, on the Force TV radio show, podcast, YouTube channel with Big Phil Campion. So let's jump back in.
So you used to go twice a week. I mean, it was on a Tuesday, Tuesday.
And then your camps and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, all the camps. I just couldn't wait.
Fieldcraft days and all that sort of stuff.
I loved every minute of it. So that was me. I was...
You were sold on joining the army through the cadets. So you were like, yeah, that's it.
I was in the Army Careers Office. Like, whenever we'd go uptown, I'd walk past it, ask my mum, can I go in?
Yeah.
As an 11, 12-year-old, and go in just to ask them for some posters, and I'd have them on the wall all over the shop. And, you know,
really? Did you have an action man in that, did you?
Of course I did. However, I wasn't one of these rich kids where they've got the action men where they've got eagle eyes and they've even got air move around. I had the Johnny Sevens, you know, where the arms were just straight.
The hand that stays in one position, no grippy hands, it just stay in one position like that.
Painted hair, plastic hair, like, a crappy, like old Iraqi prisoner of war uniform. Yeah. And you see some, well, I won't say nobody's rich at my school, but you see some other kid, he's got an old singing, dancing, action man. You're like, God almighty.
And you could get all the stuff from him as well, and I never had no stuff. No, I think the most I ever got, I got a little dinghy from a jumble sale. Do you know what I mean? That was it. And I was proud of that dinghy. Like, didn't even have an engine on it.
I know. You know, people had them and they could pull the little ring at the back, and some string would come out, and he'd even talk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
none of that, mate. None of that.
Parachutes and
that was me. I had
little tanks and
action man, which I shared with my brother.
There was one, wasn't there, where you put them on a zip line, wasn't there?
Yeah,
that was the advert, wasn't it? And I was like, where'd you get the zip line from? Do you know what I mean? I was like, never get one of them. Never.
Yeah.
Clearly, it must be some type of toy, the Action Man toy. I think that rings a bell in terms of Action Man. I never had any toys like that anyway. But just listening to them puts a big smile on my face as they talk about the no frills version of Action Man that they had. So pretty hard case. And then they're looking around and seeing other people their age, other children their age, with all the bells and whistles, it sounds like, with regards to their Action Man. But hard case.
But you know, back then, that was when it come Christmas. It was, you know, a selection box, and you get like a little. I used to always get a survival sort of. It was a survival package, what you could buy.
Yeah,
and it would have a plastic army water bottle, a plastic knife, a little compass in.
Yeah, like a blister pack thing. Yeah, to peel them off, and
I used to love all that sort of stuff. But
so you tee yourself up. You sold on the army and the cadets, and that was all you was going to do. Did you join up as a junior, or did you wait till later?
No, I joined junior leaders because going back to the cadet stuff, it was, to me, that was such a positive, because everybody else at that time, when we were becoming 14, 15, they were getting in trouble, and I could have been out getting in trouble with them.
Yeah,
but I didn't, because I wanted to be in the military. So come when I was 16. That was it. My mom.
Did you get any rank in the cadets? Did you go up through the ranks at all?
Yeah, in the cadets, I got to 4-star. It used to be a red badge. I don't know if it's still that now. And I got to staff sergeant in the Army Cadets.
Okay.
So when I left the Army Cadets at 16 years old, something like a couple of weeks after leaving the Army, I was straight in the Army. And that was it. I remember my mom had to sign. And
well, that answers a question that I had in another reaction, because I think is Colin McLaughlin. Or McLachlan. He says it Colin McLaughlin, so I'll say it the way that Colin pronounces his name. But he mentioned, because he had to get special permission, he went into the army at 15, and I wasn't sure what the age was before you could join the British military. I thought it might have been 18, like in New Zealand and Australia. But sounds like, no, it's 16. It's still, I wonder if it's still like that now. But anyway, Mel's answered that question for me that I had in that other video.
That was me goodbye, and I never.
Did you go
back.
to Stafford straight away? Was that your choice of regiment? Was it the Staffords?
No, I went to the junior leaders, infantry junior leader battalion, and I think because I've been in the cadets, they could see I had a bit of maybe leadership skills, or go to the infantry junior leaders, because at the time there was an infantry junior soldiers battalion and infantry junior leaders. I don't know if it's
was that Shorncliffe, was it?
Yeah, I went down Shorncliffe.
Okay.
And this was in 1981.
Wow. Okay.
So that's where I did. And back then, because you're a junior soldier, I don't think you was a junior, was you, mate?
No. I was adult entry, Litchfield.
Yeah. So a junior soldier, you do a full year's training. So just like the adults, but except you have a year's training instead of 18
It's the same at
weeks.
Harrogate now. So the foundation college at Harrogate, they do a year there.
Okay.
That year doesn't count as service either,
No.
does it?
Yeah, the
So you do one for the king.
that was it.
One for the queen in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one for the queen in the day. So basically, you get you lose a year's pension because they're still taking the money off you, aren't they?
Yeah,
You know
of course they are. Yeah.
Anyway, so I joined the army, junior leaders, badge Stafford. So I was going to go to join the Staffords after a year, and I loved every minute of it. And because I've been in the cadets, I was already well afraid with stuff like drill, doing the tactics, ironing, self-discipline.
But you do. I mean, the cadets does take you to a level where you're a section commander on a section attack, aren't you? You know what I mean? So you would have known your section battle drills, your marksmanship principles, your why things are saying. You'd have known all that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and your drill movements, and you can know about safety and weapon handling, and it gives you such a great basis and stuff like navigation and that. So when I got to the junior leaders, you were already steps ahead. So because of that, I got promotion today. I got to a junior sergeant major. So you were in charge of basically your company on the passing out parade and everything.
That's right. Yeah,
it's great because the infantry junior leaders back in the day, it used to be battalions from all over the British Army. I think there was about 50 infantry different regiments.
Yeah, it would have been in the day, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
all the county regiments were still there. Yeah.
Well, we was in the Prince of Wales division. It was called Peninsula Company. Yeah. So in there, there'd be like the Staffords, the Worcestershire Foresters, the Cheshire Regiment, which now make up the Mercian Regiment. Yeah, your old mob, the Royal Hampshires. You can't say the Hampshires. There's got to be the Royal Hampshires.
Don't you dare. Yeah, exactly. It's Royal Hampshires, mate. Unless
it's cool listening to them. I don't really have any input with regards to the things that they're speaking about, other than just enjoying them, hearing them reminisce about what it was like in Mao's time, with Big Phil's time, the year when he went in, the junior leaders, the pension, the loss of pension, not counting as thing, one for the Queen in those days, now one for the King. Pretty interesting listening to them talk about and reminisce what that process was like and how much Mel loved it. Clearly he loved it, and just listening to the way that he excelled in it once he got to junior leaders, become a junior sergeant major, which is, he sounds like he's flying through the ranks in terms of once he got there, which is cool.
So unless, of course, you are referring back to the war and then 1940.
So it'd be the Royal Hampshires and the Devon and Dorsets and Royal Welsh Fusiliers.
That's right.
Regiment. So all that was the Prince of Wales division. Then you had the King's division. Then you had the Light division, and you had the Paras. You had all the Scotch regiments. So it was a mix of everybody from all around the country. But on the passing out parade, it was brilliant because you can imagine you've got all these different uniforms and different bands and that. It's just so I really enjoyed the juniors and getting into the cadets first of all, because like I said, going back again, academically minded. What was the point in being, to me, as in the geology class? What's the point of showing me these rocks? What are these going to do? I'm going to find some moon dust from somewhere. What?
You're going to hide behind some later.
I ain't going to be a spaceman, that's for sure. I know they say kids can do everything they want, but I've not seen many Stokey spacemen. But don't put it off, kids. If you want to be a Stokey spaceman, you can do one.
Go and do it. Yeah. Listen, so you joined the military at a time when it went to war, didn't it? The Falklands War was
the Falklands on was 82, so we was there, but as the war was on, I always remember it. So I joined in 81, and the Falklands War was going about.
That's right.
So they had some lads who had just finished, because they go in different terms. So just as I got there, they had lads who'd passed out.
Yeah.
And they would have went to the Falklands.
Straight out, boom.
Straight out,
off you
bang,
go. There you go, get some of that.
Bang,
So you went to the Staffords. Where were they based at the time?
They were based in Gibraltar. So they had 2 years in Gibraltar. Imagine me back then, as young, by now you're 17, 17. You're going to an holiday resort. I'm like, wow. I'm used to going to Butlins on there on a rainy day, or I'm used to going to Skegness on just a day trip. I am now. It was an holiday to me because. But back then, because it was so hot, it was used to wait from 7 till 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And there was only so much you could do on the rock. So it'd be split down. They'd have like at the rifle companies, you'd do a couple of weeks guardian duties, guarding all the
facilities and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And then you do a couple of weeks military training. They had the 25-meter range and in the tunnels You've got all the tunnels there and bits of tactics because, again, it's only just a small place. So you do 2 weeks military training, and then you'd have 2 weeks of adventure training. So you're 2 weeks getting paid for doing
canoeing or whatever you're going to do.
I was doing sub-aqua diving and everything.
Really?
God almighty, it was fantastic. I remember before, that made me, I used to be scared of water. I was once a very good swimmer.
Yeah.
And some major goes, right, what do you want to do on your adventure training? I went, and he went, okay, there's a place there, you're going diving. What? I'm jumping off on a diving board? No, it was sub-aqua diving, and now I'm scared, but you just listen to, okay, he's told me go there, I've got to do it. But I remember doing it before. Only the furthest, deepest I've been on a dive was 6 feet, try and get a brick, what you used to have to get for your proficiency test. And I hated that. Got the water up your nose ever. Next minute, I'm getting paid for doing diving. So I loved it. I got into sub-aqua diving and everything. And also, because I was good at drill, this is another bonus. When you do your 2 weeks guardian duties, you'd either be stuck on the border on a checkpoint, so many hours on, so many hours off, looking through a pair of binos, getting bitten by mosquitoes, guard rooms alike.
Yeah.
But if you was good at drill, you'd be on the governor's guard. So you wouldn't be staying overnight. You'd just be practicing for drill. You do this drill parade, standing outside the governor's house, doing the old...
To the family who got thrown a curveball, we see you. Whether you need money for
present arms and saluting and all that, you got all the white kit on, you look the smart, and then every Monday you do this big parade, and that was it. So you'd just do a few hours, and then you'd have the nights off, and everybody straight, if you got on that, you had to be really smart and good at drill. And they're like, you new boy, you're on that and everything. But this was the same parade a couple of years, I think afterwards, a couple of years later, what the IRA were trying to blow up.
That's right. Yeah.
And when the Royal Anglians were there. So it's the same big parade they used to do, where they used to have every Monday, it was called the Governor's Guard, changing of the guard or something. And you get all the tourists from the holiday ships, and everybody would be watching that. It would be a packed place, and they were going to put a bomb there.
Pulled that off, that would have been carnage.
It would have been carnage.
It would have been absolute carnage, wouldn't it? So,
So it was really...
Thankfully never did, but yeah.
Far out. There's a lot in there, eh? I'm just mesmerised listening to Mal recount and talk about what he was able to do. Love the way Phil's letting him go, but also interjecting when he needs to, and sort of exchanging and sharing memories between the two of them. But man, what a process the British military has, by the sounds of things, in terms of the Prince's Guard, the King's Guard, the Queen's Guard, the Royal Scots, or sorry if I got the names wrong, in terms of all the different brigades or battalions, and Mal recounting all of that. That's that's impressive, for one, for them to remember all of that, but just I'm trying to visualize as they're talking about those different units and how huge that must be and what that must look like. I can't imagine it properly, or adequately. And then hearing him speak about going to Gibraltar, I think is where he said, going on holiday, doing backwards diving, scared of the water. Man, pretty cool to see what he's gone through and no doubt overcome, because we haven't even got into the parts where he's going to be talking about what his selection was like, I'm assuming. We're still just in the early stages. He connects a lot of stuff to his cadets. Hard case about the drill. So clearly he was absorbing everything and taking everything in and really enjoyed it. Getting good at drill, I understand that from a basic perspective and for relevant parades, but it definitely was not something that I or a lot of the people that I knew wanted to do. We wanted to do more soldiering rather than being on a drill square parade ground. But I could see and hear the advantages of it, what he's talking about in that example, in terms of the guard huts and observation and binos, getting bitten by mozzies he was talking about. Well, others just did a little bit of drill practice and then they got the rest of the evenings or whatever off. So no doubt some of those fellas must have been a bit dirty on him, he was saying. You're the new boy, you're in the drill team, so clearly must have been very good. But also a high performer across the board, it sounds like, from a young age, in terms of what he wanted to do. Right back when he spoke about getting bullied and what his dad taught him, right through cadets, getting bullied there again. And then I think he mentioned those guys left, or some of those guys left because they were useless in an earlier reaction. That made me smile. And then he just kept turning up because he loved it, really enjoyed it, and clearly he did. yeah, very cool listening to Mel recount and talk about the stuff that he's done, what he's learnt, and how he's been able to clearly apply that across his career and becoming a sergeant major of the regiment. You have to have your stuff squared away. So clearly he has.
So it was really great when I got to the regiment. I met some of the guys. One of my training officers, he was one of the guys on that job, and so
I've met a couple. We won't name drop.
No, I won't name drop.
We know the fellas, don't we?
Yeah. And well done them.
And the stories behind it, which is awesome. So listen, your first operational experience. What was your first operation?
Right, my first operational experience was when we got back from Gibraltar.
Yeah.
We went to Colchester, and from there, in 1984, and 83, and then 84, went to South Armagh. And back then, you know what? It was bandit country.
Yeah.
Cos McGlen and Besbrook and all that. But I was actually in a cop platoon because I was really keen. They put me on an NCO's course, and they said afterwards you're going to get promotion, and we need you now in a cop platoon. And back in the day, that was seemed like the elite platoon.
Yeah, I did a couple of tours with the cop platoons.
As you know, you used to go on a different course, didn't you, for it? And there was a lot of fitness involved. It used to be the recce platoons of each battalion.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's usually the older boys and more experienced, but they knew I was a fit.
Sure. That makes sense. The cop platoon, I think when Big Phil spoke about it, cop platoon was during I think he was on the Team House interview when he was talking about it. Close observation patrol or something like that. Sorry if I got the name wrong. Hopefully Mel will correct and say the right name. But that makes sense if that was like the old recce platoon, recon platoon, in terms of the type of work. Because even what Big Phil was talking about, I was like, oh, that sounds like recce, but they call it cop platoon. So that's interesting.
And really keen soldier, and they pulled me out the rifle company. And they said, you're coming through us for 6 months. And I didn't really want to go there because I had my best mates in my company. They said, no, you're coming through us. So I was doing that. So my first operational tour, I was lying out on observation post for 10 days and nights, getting
with your camera,
with the camera getting
wet. Remember, because it was film, wasn't it? Filming the camera. Yeah, and you used to have to uprate and I could never get my head around it because you had to do maths, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was that was 16 for. You're like, how does that even? I was thinking about that. How does that even work?
Yeah, and back then there was no Gore-Tex or anything, so you get in these little edge rows and you'd be lying there for 10 days and nights, 4 of you,
That's right.
pooing in cling film and weeing, and you just passing. And because I was a new boy, you do the poo in the cling film, and you're all just in, you're literally meters away from each other. Yeah. When that guy's sleeping, you just jump in his sleeping bag and swap over, and you can't move.
Yeah.
And then you'd watch each other have a poo, put the poo in the cling film, and then wrap it up and then put it in a plastic bag. And because I was the new boy, I would have the plastic bin bag full of poo. Yeah. So I'd have to be carrying that out. Yeah. My bacon was only more heavy going out than what it was coming in, because I'm carrying all this shit, literally
everyone's rations on the way out.
But when it was cold, I actually remember, because it was cold, after somebody's done a poo, holding the cling film and actually warming my hands on it, thinking, that isn't that bad. There's a positive.
There's a positive in there.
That's hard case, man. It's awesome how you can take the positive from that, as weird as that may seem to other people. Man, you do what you need to do, to make sure that you're leaving minimal trace or sign in terms of where you've been, the tactical aspect behind it, the discipline around that in terms of going through that process. And then also, the junior lad is gonna be carrying out that stuff for everybody else. So hard case to hear him talk about his pack was heavier on the way out than it was going in. And as Big Phil mentioned, you're carrying everybody's rations. Oh man, I have to say I've not gone to the extent of holding the warm poo that's in the bag and using that to warm the hands. But that's hard case. You do what you need to do, and if that gave him a bit of a boost and he could find the positive in that for him, then more power to him. Awesome work, Mel. Hard case.
There's somewhere.
But so that was my first operational experience in South Armagh, and unfortunately, he had your really good friend killed on that operation. He stood on a pressure plate, and then we had, I was on the ground at that time, and it was quite difficult, and we had a few casualties.
Yeah,
because back then there was no movement around that area, not even on armored wagons. Was it in the military?
That's right. Yeah,
the IRA would bomb everywhere, and because they could just get across the border, so you literally bouncing out of helicopters, doing your patrols and bouncing back.
That's right. Did all the Eagle VCPs and all that they used to call them, didn't they?
Yeah. And I only checked it around Crossmaglen at that time, that square kilometre or 2 kilometres of area, more British servicemen died in that area than they had since the Second World War. With the most.
Yeah. It was a dangerous place, wasn't it?
Yeah. It used to be.
It was a dangerous place.
Snipers and you name it.
Yeah. Mortar plates.
Yeah. And
they set the fire. They set that Sanger on fire once. Didn't they? The big one outside Crossmaglen. They set it on fire, didn't they?
Oh God, that was.
And they sprayed it from a muck spreader filled with fuel, didn't they?
And then
set it on fire.
Back going on a few years later, I remember going back to this time in Tyrone, and I was in Dungannon, and I was in Rossley.
Yeah.
And Annick Martin, that was my permanent patrol base, checkpoint, checkpoint. And Killy, I think it was called Killy or something, the one up the road, a couple of years beyond, back. It was when I think the Scottish unit was there, and that got overrun by the RA.
Overrun, didn't it? Yeah.
Remember that? They actually smacked it out, and overrun it.
The chef hid in the freezer, didn't he? One of the chefs hid in the freezer.
Yeah.
Some of them ran away.
Yeah.
Some of them got murdered.
Crazy back then.
Yeah, it was a crazy
Anyway,
time.
so that was my first operational tour. I was like 19 years old, and it was the time when you was in the Coppertune, the gunners would have an LMG, like an old Bren gun. And the commander would have would have armor lights, and you'd have the Gucci kit, but there was no Gore-Tex out. And I used to carry this LMG with the 30-round magazine on the top, and then you'd have another 6 magazines. But it also had the CWS on. Remember the IWS, the big one.
Big, yeah.
I used to get down. I remember going on a patrol. The commander just stopped. And he'd stand up and looking through his nice little scope on an armor light with one arm. And there's me just getting down. Just as you get down in the position, you got your bipods open, you're just in the position, right. And then he'd be off again. Carry this, a little skinny lad there. It's so heavy. But yeah, that was the first operational tour.
So did you get a bit of exposure to the regiment there? Because
that's hearty, man. Being on the LMG, I'm guessing light machine gun. If that's the acronym that they use, don't quote me on that. That may not be the acronym that they use for that particular weapon, but it's got a 30-round magazine on top, another 6 mags bombed up. It's got his kit and everything on, and then having to Joel Commander giving the stop, getting the scope out and having a look, scanning the area. And just as he's getting down, I can relate to what he's talking about. Just getting into position, got the bipod out, getting the gun up into the shoulder, and then next minute, PC's up and off again, and so you got to get up and start moving again. That's a mission. And then you get times when you go to places and you get the gun group sign and get pointed up to the top of that feature, and then you've got to make your way up there and then get set up. Then when it's time to move, you come back down and then head off again and up and down on all these different features. Hard case, but good times, good memories. Definitely character building, and definitely, at least in my opinion anyway, sorts out whether or not you want to be there and serve and do that type of work. And that's before you get to the regiment. So all of the stuff that Mal's talking about is clearly before he's in the regiment. And also just the amount of experience, so whatever the UK system is. So I've had a few people put down in the comments that you got to do a minimum 10 years or whatever it is. I don't think it needs to be 10 years. Knowing one of the guys that served in 22SAS, Colin McLaughlin, who was 23 when he went through the UK SF selection. But he did join, he got special permission and joined the army at 15. So he had been in the army for a while. What's that, 8 years before he went on selection. But early 20s, 23, that's a good nudge. And even he says, the regiment sort of around that time, and I think even still to this day, prefer sort of late 20s, early 30s before you apply to go on selection. Hey, it works for them, right? That process, that system works for them. Do I think you need to be Not that it's old, but do I think you need to be late 20s or early 30s before you do selection? Personally, I don't think you need to, but I would say it likely helps from a maturity perspective, from experience perspective, from likely in Mel's case and Big Phil's as well, operational perspective and experience as well. So there are definitely a lot of benefits and positives to it. Anyway, let's jump back in here. I think Big Phil's just asked him about if he had any exposure to the regiment at this time on his first operation, which sounds hectic.
So on my day when I did the cop tours, there was always an instructor from the regiment on the cop course.
Yeah.
So you would have seen someone down there.
Yeah, I can even remember his name, but obviously I'm not going to say that. I remember seeing him. He was an old major, and I'm like, God, an alley major, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, who's this? And then somebody said he's SAS, and he used to take us on runs as well. And I thought, and I was a fit lad. Yeah. Boy, could he run. You know, he's the beast us around and everything. Like, wow. So he was the first ever guy I saw from the SAS. But what I always also remember, though, was being in the observation platoon when we thought we saw something what's going to be potential. You know, we're watching terrorist houses, we're watching across the border, and we think we've seen something what's going to happen. I remember being extracted, and then these 4 area horse grillers come in, you know, all big long tashes and all. I'm like, who the hell are these?
Perms.
Yeah. And they just come in, right? You lot go, and they just took over, and like my commander goes, basically, they're the boys.
Yeah,
if nothing went down then, but they were thinking it was going to go down. So if it was going to go down, they'd pull you out. So you do the hard work, and they'd have the goodies. So I'm like, I want some of that. So that was my first exposure to it.
Yeah. You did.
It's interesting, that's amazing that Mel mentioned that, because it reminds me of what Big Phil's spoken about when he saw those guys giving them the tap and going, that sounds like a bit of him, and hearing Mel just sharing the same thing. It's interesting, a lot of the similar traits that guys there in the UK have, and NZ have, and Australia have, in terms of thoughts, processes, mindset around wanting to get into the unit, experiences, observations of badged members, and just sort of, it's like a bolt of lightning or something that just goes off inside, and you think, that's what I want to do. That's the place I want to go to and be a part of that unit. Okay, nearly 30 minutes. Listen, I'll wrap this one up here. 35 minutes, 20 seconds in. But really enjoy listening to Mel and Big Phil. Probably got through a bigger chunk of that. Not that I'm intentionally trying to get through a big chunk. Just happened that way because a lot of the British military stuff, I have no idea about it. So can't really comment on it other than just being mesmerized and listening to them talk about it and recount their experiences and where they were posted, what their first jobs were, or what, in this case here, Big Phil asking Mel what his first job was. And now it sounds like he's starting to get into some of the aspects around the lads in the regiment. So that'll be cool next time when I come back. So anyway, appreciate you if you stuck around this long. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy, support, encouragement of this channel, of me. Very much appreciated. And as always, anybody going through any difficulties, challenges, hard times, just as always, keep turning up. Keep staying in the fight. Keep putting one foot in front of the other, and stay as consistent and as disciplined as you can. Even though I know it sucks, just know that you're not alone. No matter how long and dark and miserable that space is, and lonely that space is that you may be in right now, just know that it won't last forever and that you're not alone. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Better days are coming and the sun will shine again. So just keep sticking at it. Keep staying in it. I know it's hard. Everybody is going through stuff. So just know that you're not alone and just keep turning up. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video or milestone or post, a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.